Please come over to our house tonight. I want to treat you to a meal I've prepared just for you. In a normal family, this would be grateful, but I harbor doubts about my daughter-in-law Julie's attitude. Just 3 days ago, I had scolded Julie for neglecting her child-rearing duties under the excuse of her part-time job. Yet now, Julie, who never cooks, suddenly wants to treat me to a meal. What's the reason behind this? As I pondered this, my response was delayed, and she added, "I'm always in your debt, aren't I? After you scolded me the other day, I finally woke up. I need to be more like a mother." Well, if you've understood that, I'm happy. Despite my doubts about Julie's true intentions, I decided to indulge in her kindness. Julie greeted me with a smile that seemed almost too extravagant. "Welcome. Today, I've prepared fish and croquettes for you. Please, relax and enjoy. I even filleted the fish myself." Wow, that's impressive. It must have been hard for you, who doesn't usually cook. It was. I cut my fingers several times. Indeed, looking at Julie's hands, several of her slender, white fingertips were covered in band-aids. I began to think that maybe she really did put effort into cooking for me. "Come, take a seat." I sat down as she suggested, and there were 2 croquettes on the plate. "Try these croquettes. They're freshly fried." With a mischievous smile, Julie offered me the croquettes. "My name is Olivia, and I'm 62 years old. When I was 20, I reunited and married my high school classmate at a party. A year later, we were blessed with our son, Bob. After graduating college, Bob got a job at a local company and rented an apartment near his workplace for a shorter commute. At 30, he married Julie, a cute woman with a lovely smile, whom he met through work. My husband and I were looking forward to a bright future for their marriage, but soon after, my husband passed away. Left alone, I overcame my loneliness by turning my hobby of flower arrangement into a profession, opening a classroom in my home. Luckily, I had plenty of students, so I was able to support myself financially. The newlyweds were both working, so their meals often relied on dining out, but they seemed to manage well by cooperating in household chores. "Feel free to come over for a meal sometime." "Thanks, Mom. We'll visit when we have time." Even though they were busy, I kept in touch with Bob and Julie, often over the phone. 2 years after their marriage, Julie gave birth to their first child, Sophia. She quit her job to focus on child rearing. Since her parents lived far away, they couldn't visit often. Concerned about her handling first-time parenting alone, I frequently visited to help. "If you ever need help, just tell me. I'm always grateful for your help." Supporting Julie's parenting was also a source of fulfillment for me. Bob, despite working late, always made sure to see Sophia before bed and took care of Sophia whenever he was home. But being a new dad, he was often unsure about childcare, and either Julie or I would step in to calm Sophia when he cried. "I'm not good at this. I need to study parenting more. No one's perfect from the start. You learn as you go. It's not just the child who grows, but the parents too." "Wow, you're so insightful." Julie said that with a big smile on her face. As Sophia turned 3 and Julie found more free time, she started working part-time again. "Don't push yourself too hard. Do what you can." I said this out of concern for Julie, but Julie shook her head. "I want to contribute to the household income for Sophia's sake." Sophia is in daycare now. "That's great. I'll take care of Sophia on daycare's days off since my classes are off too." "Thank you for everything." I felt more embarrassed than grateful. My true intention was just to spend more time with Sophia. With Julie working part-time, she was out of the house more, and household chores and childcare often took a back seat. Still, Bob and I decided not to interfere, understanding she must be tired from returning to work. On my days off from teaching flower arrangement classes, I'd often take care of Sophia, suggesting to Julie and Bob, "Why don't you two go out for a movie or something, have some alone time?" "Where's Mommy and Daddy?" "Mommy and Daddy are off to power up so they can keep protecting you, Sophia." "Wow, that's amazing." Yet, when Julie returned from their rare date, she looked exhausted. Seeing her deep sigh, I asked, "Didn't have fun?" "Not really, it was so crowded." Bob replied to her, looking unhappy. I wondered if my good intentions had unintentionally caused them trouble. Months passed, and one day, Julie came over with Sophia. "Are you off to work again today?" "Yes, I'll be busy all day, so please take care of Sophia," Julie said, bowing her head. I found it odd. "Isn't your job at the local supermarket? Is it that busy all day?" Julie hesitated for a moment, then said, "I've increased my hours recently." After a few months, I realized my income wasn't rising as much as I'd hoped. She quickly changed the subject. "Anyway, can you teach me your cooking sometime? Sophia loves it." I didn't press further, agreeing with a smile, "Sure, when we find the time." But I felt that day might never come. From then on, Julie not only left Sophia with me but also started asking me to do their house cleaning and laundry. Entering their home, I'd often sigh at the sight. It was clear Julie hardly touched the cleaning or laundry. "Even with more work hours, shouldn't you be able to handle this much?" Grumbling to myself but not wanting to leave it as it was, both for hygiene and Sophia's sake, I started cleaning right away. Opening the fridge, I found it nearly empty, with used ready meal containers carelessly tossed in the sink. It was heartbreaking to see Sophia living in such conditions, quietly drawing in the living room. My dissatisfaction with Julie grew day by day, eventually leading to a confrontation. "Please take care of Sophia today, and the cleaning too. Oh, and can you throw out the piled-up newspapers as well?" Julie said, about to leave as usual. "Hold on a minute. I have something important to discuss with you," I said sternly. Julie, taken aback by my tone, turned around. "I'm not just a convenient babysitter for you to dump Sophia on every time you use work as an excuse. I know. I feel bad about it and I'm reflecting on it." "Really? It doesn't seem like it." Confronted with my stern tone, Julie momentarily halted her rebuttal. "Not only Sophia but also pushing the cleaning and laundry onto me. Do you think I'm some kind of maid? I didn't mean that. Then why don't you try to do some of it yourself? I'm just so tired from work every day." I sighed at her repeated excuse. "I understand you're tired, but there are ways to manage. Like learning easy recipes or doing a bit of cleaning daily. It's sheer laziness, I must say." I knew I was being harsh, but I felt it was necessary. I felt that if I didn't speak up like that, Julie would continue to take advantage of my kindness indefinitely. I didn't want Julie to think it was okay to leave all the housework and childcare to others. If we couldn't speak honestly out of fear of ruining our relationship, we couldn't call it a good one. Sometimes, you have to be tough. "I'm sorry. I'll be more careful." Julie apologized with a sulky face. That night, I called Bob, timing it with his return from work. I spoke harshly to Julie about taking responsibility for the household and childcare. "Did she mention anything to you?" "No, nothing. But why say such things? That's between me and Julie, not something for you to interfere in," Bob replied, slightly annoyed. "It's not nonsense. You saw how dirty the house was, how much laundry there was. Why don't you, as her husband, say anything?" Bob sighed audibly. "I always clean up when I get home. Julie's tired from her new job. Besides, the old-fashioned idea that housework is only a woman's job is outdated. That's not the point. You're tired from work too, right? Why don't you both cooperate? The way things are, it's just not right." "All right, I'll talk to Julie about it," Bob promised, though unconvincingly. After that, Julie gradually stopped pushing housework and childcare onto me. I was relieved, thinking she had reflected. However, when Sophia started elementary school, things seemed to revert back to how they were. On the weekends, Sophia always comes to my house with a backpack to stay the night, and even on weekday nights she often comes to my house for dinner. Sometimes, after school, Sophia wouldn't go straight home but instead head to my place with her backpack, saying, "Grandma, I'm home." "That's not right, this isn't your home," I'd say with a laugh, to which Sophia would seriously reply, "Well, I'm gonna eat here anyway, might as well stay over tonight, right?" Julie seems to still be using her part-time job as an excuse for coming home late. Bob, too, has been coming home late more often since his promotion, and his business trips to other states have increased. It's understandable given their positions, but leaving an elementary school kid alone with both parents away. Dinner should ideally be eaten at home with family. Do I bother you when I come here, Grandma? Sophia looked at me with sad eyes, so I hurriedly said, of course not. I love it when you enjoy my cooking so much. But doesn't your mom cook for you? Sometimes when she's home, she heats up pre-made meals or boils water for instant noodles. Sophia answered as if this was a sign of her mother's kindness. All right, you can stay over tonight. Again, Julie's shortcomings seemed to come to the fore. Sighing, I pulled out Sophia's dirty clothes from her bag. What's this? There's a hole. I fell while playing soccer with friends a while back. Mom said she'd fix it when she's less busy. How long ago was that? Right after spring break, I think. Summer break was almost here, which meant Sophia had been wearing her gym clothes with a hole all this time. I'll sew it up for you while I do the laundry. Thanks, Grandma. But no leaving carrots on your plate. Sophia sneakily tried to hide the carrots she disliked at the edge of her plate. You need to eat your veggies to grow big and strong. I pretended to be stern, and reluctantly, Sophia put the carrots in her mouth, making a face at their taste and texture. The next morning, I visited Bob and Julie's house and ran into Julie just as she was leaving. Julie, enough is enough. What's the matter with you, yelling so early in the morning? You're giving me a headache. Julie frowned with an annoyed expression. I told her about the clothes from last night. Julie said, oh, I forgot about that. It's not a laughing matter. Can't you act a bit more like a mother? Sophia feels sorry for you. I'm busy with my job. You know that. Busy moms aren't just you. Others work hard without complaining. Yet you. Are we done? I'm in a hurry. Don't want to be late and get scolded by my boss. Julie ignored my attempt to stop her and left. 3 days later, Julie called me. Please come over tonight. I want to treat you to a meal I've prepared for you. In a normal family, this would be a happy occasion, but I had my doubts about Julie's attitude. Why would Julie, who never cooks, suddenly want to treat me to a meal? As I hesitated to respond, she added, I've always been a burden on you. After you scolded me, I realized I need to be more motherly. Well, if you understand that, I'm happy. Despite my doubts about her true intentions, I decided to accept her invitation. Arriving at their house, the delicious smell that greeted me. It suggested Julie had indeed cooked. Julie welcomed me with an exaggerated smile. Welcome. Today, I prepared fish and croquettes. Please, take your time. I even filleted the fish myself. Wow, impressive. Must have been hard for you, who doesn't usually cook. Yes, I cut my fingers several times. But I learned from a housewife who shows how to fillet fish on a streaming service. Indeed, Julie's slender, white fingertips were covered in band-aids. Maybe she really did put effort into cooking for me, and I slightly revised my opinion of her. Come, have a seat. As I sat down, I noticed 2 croquettes on the plate. Let's eat these croquettes while they're still warm. Sounds good. Sophia isn't back from school yet. Let's enjoy the croquettes. Just then, the front door opened, and Sophia's energetic voice called out, I'm home. Oh, you're back already. What? Grandma's here too. Sophia and I high-fived with joy. Mom made croquettes today. Go wash your hands first. These were prepared for Grandma. It's okay. Sophia would want some too. But... Julie looked perplexed. After washing her hands, Sophia rushed to my side and sat down next to me. Wow, these croquettes look delicious. No, you can't have those. I made them for Grandma. Julie scolded with a stern face, but I smiled and said, I'll just take the thought. Go ahead, eat them while they're still warm. I passed my croquettes, meant for me, to Sophia, who must have been hungry. Thank you, Grandma. Just as Sophia was about to bite into the croquette, Julie shouted in a voice I'd never heard before, No. Not that one. What's wrong, Mom? Sophia stopped and looked at her mother, puzzled. Sorry for startling you. That croquette actually has carrots in it, which you hate, right? I'll make you another one without carrots later. Hearing this from Julie, Sophia let go of the croquette. You still need to eat your veggies. They're tasty, give them a try. I encouraged her with a smile. Sophia hesitated, then suddenly said, Grandma, can you check if there's a letter in the mailbox? I think there might be one. Curious, I stepped outside to check, but found no letters. Sophia was clearly stalling to pick out the carrots from her croquette, such a transparent plan. I chuckled to myself. There was no letter, I said, returning to find the croquette split in half, as expected. But Sophia sat with a troubled look, facing the halved croquette. What's wrong? Aren't you eating? Grandma, there's something weird about this croquette. It has a bone in it. A bone? What do you mean? I examined the croquette and indeed, something sharp and bone-like was poking out. When I split it with my chopsticks to remove the carrots, this bone popped out. It's strange for a croquette. What's this about, Julie? Julie remained silent, looking down. Further investigation revealed not just one bone, but several, chopped into pieces and stuffed into the croquette. It could have caused a serious injury if eaten unknowingly. The reality in front of me sent chills down my spine. Julie had said she filleted fish for grilled fish, but could the bones have mistakenly ended up in the croquette? No, that seemed impossible. It's impossible that such a large chunk of bone could have been mistakenly put in. It's more reasonable to think it was intentionally added. Let me check something. When I said, standing up, Julie tried to stop me, but I brushed her arm off and headed to the kitchen. I rummaged through the trash and found the fish head, but no other bones. Strange, where did all the bones go? Back at the table, I broke open the other croquette, which turned out to be just a normal one. So you went that far, Julie? Anger and disdain for Julie welled up inside me. Then Bob came home from work. What's all this noise? I could hear it from outside. Oh, Mom, you're here. What happened? I revealed to Bob the entire plot that had just unfolded. Julie! Is what Mom's saying true? Julie glared at me in silence. I'm asking why there were bones in the croquette. I don't know. Maybe the bones from the fish I filleted earlier stuck to my hands by accident. Julie's desperate excuses continued. It wasn't just a few small bones. How could such large chunks accidentally end up in there? And why did you try so hard to stop Sophia from eating that particular croquette? But You can't answer, can you? You knew about the bones in that croquette. I pulled Sophia close and glared at Julie. If Sophia had eaten that unknowingly, it would have been disastrous. Are you even fit to be her mother? It's not like that. It wasn't Sophia I hated, it was you. Julie's confession followed, cornered and loud. The room went silent for a moment, then I smiled slyly, you just gave yourself away. Julie's face showed immediate regret. The bone-filled croquette was meant for me. The other one was fine. So, you really hate me that much? Is this true, Julie? Why would you do something so foolish? Bob interrogated her. Julie then feigned fear. I'm sorry. I've been enduring your mother's bullying since we got married. But I never told you because I didn't want to worry you. What are you talking about? I had no recollection of such behavior, but Julie went on to claim, even when I come home tired from my part-time job and try to take a break on the sofa, you immediately demands, start cooking now, or clean the room. You show a completely different face when Bob is around, like a demon or a devil. She portrayed me as if I were some kind of monster. That's not how it was. As I was bewildered, Sophia tugged at my sleeve. Mom's lying. She always comes home late and tells me to eat at Grandma's. I've never seen her cook at home. She does nothing. Grandma did everything for me. Hey, don't talk nonsense! Julie yelled, face red, as her child revealed the truth. So that's how it was. I was always busy with work and often came home late, so I didn't know about home. I never imagined Julie was such a terrible mother. I'm sorry, Sophia, Bob said, stroking Sophia's head. People who work part-time usually consider their family situation, right? Yet you're always busy? Do you need Mom's help every day? Bob asked skeptically. Sorry, I lied. My part-time job ended early, but I was stressed from the unfamiliar work and wanted some time to unwind. You were so kind and caring, I took advantage of that. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm reflecting. Julie's demeanor suddenly turned meek. You promised to talk to me about any problems before we got married, remember? I'm sorry, Bob. No, it's my fault too. I used work as an excuse to dump everything on you. I'm reflecting. So, promise me you won't do such foolish things again. Thank you, Bob. I don't want to do that again. I promise. As the couple's relationship seemed to mend, I noticed Julie smirking. Julie, you're hiding something from us, aren't you? What are you talking about? I'm not hiding anything. I've reflected on my past actions and decided to live for Sophia and our family. You're having an affair, aren't you? I confronted Julie with the fact I'd kept to myself. Julie's gaze wandered as she retorted, Don't say such ridiculous things. That's enough, Mom. It's cruel to accuse Julie like that when she's already repenting. Bob interjected, taking Julie's side. I pulled out a brown envelope from my bag, opened it, and urged, Can you still say the same after seeing this? What is this? No way! The envelope contained a report from a private investigator I'd hired. Soon after Sophia started daycare, Julie began frequently dumping childcare responsibilities on me. Suspecting something was off, I had hired a private investigator to look into it. It revealed that Julie had been secretly dating a younger man shortly after Sophia started daycare. Furious at this revelation, I scolded Julie without disclosing her affair, and afterward, she gradually stopped leaving Sophia with me. After receiving reports from the infidelity investigation showing no further developments, I was relieved, thinking Julie had reformed and started to take childcare seriously. However, as soon as Sophia started elementary school, Julie once again began to neglect childcare and household duties. A renewed investigation showed a shocking twist. Her new lover was a completely different man. Julie was the kind of woman who indiscriminately dated any man she took a liking to. Wrong! This is wrong! You're misunderstanding. Maybe the private investigator twisted the facts because he wanted his success fee. Julie continued with her implausible excuses. Sophia pulled my sleeve again. Mom used to dress up in fancy clothes and leave late at night when Dad wasn't around. A man would wait in the parking lot and take her away in his car. I saw it many times. And when Dad was coming home, Mom would return home too, so Dad never realized she was going out. That's a lie! Believe me, I never cheated! Even if you were stressed, how could I trust you after you tried to hurt Mom with the fish bone in the croquette? It's over between us, Bob said, picking up Sophia. Do you want to live with Grandma? Sophia nodded emphatically. That's it, Julie. Bob and Sophia are leaving. As we left Julie standing there bewildered, Bob consulted a lawyer with the investigator's report. His intention to divorce was firm. Sophia expressed her desire to live with her father and grandmother, completely refusing to return to Julie. As a result of the mediation, the divorce between Julie and Bob was officially finalized. Bob sought child support, successfully claiming from Julie. It seemed Julie's cheating partner had reasons and wanted to quickly resolve the issue, so he is no longer in touch with her. Bob and Sophia began living with me. Finally done with work for the day, Bob said, stretching as he emerged from his room. Bob switched to fully remote work. He said, I want to spend more time with Sophia. He seemed much happier now. Shall we have dinner early? Bob suggested, rubbing his stomach. Yeah. I'm starving. Sophia stood up from the TV. Is that okay, Mom? Dinner's ready. It's Sophia's favorite meatloaf. Yay! I love your meatloaf, Grandma. But no carrots, please. No, eat your vegetables. Thanks to me not liking carrots, Grandma didn't get hurt by the bone. So I shouldn't have to eat them, right? Sophia pleaded. That's a different matter. They're tasty, so eat up. Okay. Sophia agreed to eat the carrots, albeit reluctantly. I felt immense joy watching Sophia grow up before my eyes. How could this happen in just 5 days? I screamed as I looked around the living room of my house. I had been admitted to the hospital to give birth, and in the 5 days until my discharge. The living room had become filled with the smell of rotting food. Unfinished frozen food was left on the desk, with the remnants of the leftovers. Scattered across the floor were plastic containers and trays, probably leftovers from some ready-made meals. Surrounding them, I could see lots of what appeared to be flies. Cleaning and tidying up is your job, right? So I just left everything as is until you got back. My husband, waving his hand irritably at the small insects flying around the light. He turned around and frowned upon seeing me, covering my nose from the stench. See, it's impossible to live in such a stinky room, isn't it? Hurry up and clean it. I was at a loss for words. Could my husband not see the baby in my arms? My name is Madison, a 28-year-old office worker. I've been working at the company I joined right after graduation, blessed with respectable supervisors and colleagues, and everything's been going well. A few years ago, I married Ethan, who I met at the same company, is 2 years older than me. After we got married, I continued working, and Ethan and I were good colleagues at the company, and after work, we were great partners, supporting and encouraging each other through our troubles. When we were about a year into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. We were delighted since we wanted a child. Our parents and in-laws cried tears of joy when we told them. My in-laws have been kind to me since Ethan and I started dating. When I first went to their house to greet them before we got married, they welcomed me with open arms. After getting married, since our homes are close, Ethan's mother and I often go out on weekends, and we've built a good relationship. When I told Ethan, "Your parents are truly considerate and wonderful," he nodded and said, "Mom's been an amazing mother who's looked after me." Dad worked from dawn till dusk and wasn't home much, but he always showered us with love and gratitude towards Mom, which made me realize once again what a caring couple they are. After we got married, my mother-in-law would often express concern, saying, "Values have changed over the years, and as long as you and Ethan are happy with your lives, that's all that matters. But I worry that you, Madison, will be burdened with all the housework now that you're married and working." I reassured her with a smile, saying, "No need to worry. Ethan and I are splitting the chores well and helping each other out," and she seemed relieved. Actually, Ethan and I began living together after we got married. My mother-in-law knew this and was probably concerned about whether we could live together without any discontent. Of course, there were some worries about getting married without having lived together first. But Ethan was always kind to me during our dating period, never forgetting to be considerate even after many years. So I was confident that we could live together without any problems. True to my expectations, Ethan had been sticking to the promises we made since we started living together, and he never pushed all the responsibilities onto me. He even said he wanted to lessen my burdens more. Such a caring husband, after finding out about my pregnancy, told me to rely on him more when we were together since something might happen to our precious child. Despite his busy schedule, Ethan managed to take care of the household. In the early stages of my pregnancy, I suffered from morning sickness and often had to take time off work. I used to blame myself, having always managed to balance work and everything else before. Even when I saw Ethan going to work every day and felt that I should at least do some housework, I couldn't because I was feeling ill. When I cried and apologized to Ethan, saying, "I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything today," he'd reassure me, "Hey, no need to apologize. I've lived alone for a long time, so household chores are no big deal. Madison, you're doing your best to nurture our baby in your belly. I can't completely understand your hardship, so let me at least take care of our home." Lately, Ethan has been very studious, buying parenting books and diligently studying every day. Seeing him like this made me realize again how glad I am to have married him. My pregnancy went smoothly, and I spent it without any worries until the birth. My parents and in-laws would come by from time to check on us, and thanks to the support of those around us, the baby grew well in my belly. As the due date approached and my belly grew, I took maternity leave and now focus on staying healthy and calm. It's tough to go out with my belly so big, but I managed to make it to my prenatal checkups while taking care of myself. Recently, as I've entered the final month, my mother-in-law, who lives nearby, started accompanying me to the checkups because she's worried about me. She helps carry my backpack and other items, and while I feel a bit guilty, I'm also very grateful. At first, I felt guilty for having her come all the way with me and declined when my mother-in-law offered to accompany me. But she cheerfully said, "Now that my children are grown up, I have quite a bit of free time. Besides, attending your checkups is pretty much all I have to do. I'm certainly concerned about your health, but it also doubles as exercise for me, so it's a win-win situation." So, I began to rely on her and together we headed for the checkup that day. Then, one day, while I was getting my usual checkup at the hospital, I was suddenly struck by a pain in my stomach. The doctor, noticing something was wrong with me, calmly said while trying to reassure me, "I'll perform an internal examination right away." While I was nervously waiting for the results, the doctor said, "You're showing signs of labor, so you'll be admitted right away. We'll prepare for the delivery while monitoring you closely. You're going to meet your baby soon," he told me gently. However, it was also sudden that I was not mentally prepared. In the midst of this, my mother-in-law held my hand and reassured me, "It's going to be all right. I'll be right here with you, so don't worry." I reminded myself that I had to stay calm for my baby, and gradually I came to accept the situation and prepared myself for the imminent birth. I had calmed down a bit when my mother-in-law said, "I'm going to run home real quick to grab what you need. I'll be right back. I'll also give Ethan a call," and she dashed out of the hospital. A few minutes later, my mother-in-law came back and immediately asked me, "Are you okay? Are you in any pain or discomfort?" "Thank you so much. You've been a great help." She held my hand and said with a smile, "It's nothing. Just let me do this much. Ethan might be able to get off work early. He could still make it in time for the birth. I've already called your parents just in case." Her words reminded me that I had completely forgotten to inform my parents about the labor pain and my anxiety about giving birth. My parents, living in the next town over, which I'll equate to living in the next state over, might not make it before the birth, but they said they would come right away. Soon after, my father-in-law arrived, simply saying, "Oh, it's time," and watched over me from the corridor. Then, a while later, my parents arrived. While enduring the repeated labor pains, I waited for the moment to come. My parents deeply thanked my in-laws, "Thank you so much for everything, from getting things ready for the hospital stay to being by our daughter's side." And to me, they said, "It'll be over soon, take some deep breaths. We're all here with you, you'll be okay." My in-laws replied with a smile to my parents, "Oh, no worries at all. We're just glad we made it in time," and the whole family, except for my husband, surrounded me. I was growing more anxious as the intervals between the pains shortened, but having my whole family there was a great comfort. Several hours later, even though it was late into the night, I gave birth to a healthy baby. While waiting in the lounge near the nurse's station, trying not to disturb the other pregnant women and mothers, my in-laws and parents expressed their joy through silent hugs and high-fives. Having finally given birth, I was overwhelmed with relief and moved by the sight of my newborn, though I felt a pang of disappointment that my husband was not by my side. He was supposed to have left work early, and I wondered why he hadn't come, but by the next morning, he still hadn't appeared. My in-laws called my husband numerous times, worrying that something had happened, but they couldn't reach him. Even at 9 a.m., my father-in-law went to our house. But my husband did not answer. Finally, when my mother-in-law contacted my husband's office, they were aware that I had been admitted for childbirth and said my husband had left work earlier than usual. It was supposed to be a day dedicated just to me, so he took the day off, and it seems like he didn't show up at the office. After that, the whole family was in a frenzy. If I'm not at home or the office, we thought maybe it was best to go to the police, and it was starting to turn into a big deal. However, just as it was about to be noon, the receptionist informed us that my husband had arrived. Relief was short-lived, and I couldn't help but feel anxious, wondering what on earth had happened. But as I was about to speak to my husband who had come to the hospital room, I was at a loss for words. "Ah, so it's born." It was all he said at first. His suit was disheveled, and his hair was a mess. As he got closer, I could even smell alcohol on him. I couldn't believe he might have gone drinking at a time like this, and when I looked at him, he showed no interest in our baby, instead staring intently at his smartphone. Trying to remain calm, I asked, "What have you been doing up until now?" Ethan, still half asleep, responded, "Sorry. I just went for a drink." It was an old friend I haven't seen in a while, and I couldn't say no. I've just been sleeping until now and got here late. He didn't take his eyes off his phone during this time, so my anger finally exploded. But before that, my father-in-law grabbed my husband's shoulders. What are you thinking? It doesn't matter if it's been a while or whatever, meeting friends for drinks doesn't even compare to your wife giving birth. Why didn't you turn them down? My husband kept interrupting with but. And it's just that. Eventually, he stopped talking altogether with a sullen face under the fiery glare of my father-in-law. After a heavy sigh, he left the hospital room without another glance at me or our baby. My father and father-in-law tried to follow him, but they couldn't keep up due to their age, and my husband never showed his face at the hospital during my stay. 5 days after giving birth, with the support of my family, both mother and child were healthy and we were discharged without any issues. As my mother and father, who had come from far away, were leaving, my mother-in-law said to them, "We're looking forward to seeing you again. Please leave your daughter to us," and on the day of discharge, she helped me get home with my father-in-law carrying the luggage. That morning, after being discharged, I texted my husband just to say I was going home, and he immediately called back. When I answered, he said, "Hey, Madison. I'm glad you're discharged safely. I'm gonna pick you up and we'll head home by car." I hadn't expected a call back from my husband and secretly hoped he might have reflected a bit. When I told my mother-in-law that my husband had called, she laughed and joked, "Well, if Ethan isn't busy, maybe he could come pick us up." I told my husband, "I was planning on having your parents send me, but I appreciate you coming to get me," and he said, "Got it. I'll have mom and dad head back right now." After informing them that my husband was coming to pick me up, my in-laws seemed relieved and went on their way. I thanked the hospital staff repeatedly and finished the paperwork before getting into my husband's car. He didn't apologize for before but seemed to be in high spirits as he drove. Soon we were home, and I felt like crying from the pain, even from such a short ride. Thinking about all the mothers in the world enduring this pain and persevering through parenting made me feel a little anxious. With my husband's previous enthusiasm for parenting, I had to psych myself up, believing it'll be all right. I chalked up the troubles during my hospital stay to him being tired or perhaps getting scolded by his dad more than he expected and sulking about it. I braced myself with the resolve that we would raise our baby together and opened the front door. Instantly, an appalling stench hit my nose. Hesitating to enter because of the unknown smell, my husband seemed unbothered and flung the living room door wide open. Immediately, the rotten odor of garbage overwhelmed me, making me feel nauseous. "Wow, that reeks. Hey, clean this up, will you?" He commanded authoritatively, a satisfied smirk on his face. "I waited the 5 days you were in the hospital, so clean this up now. Can't live in a house that smells like this." Holding our baby, I nearly collapsed on the spot but managed to restrain myself. "How can you live like this, to let the house get so dirty?" I asked, barely containing my anger, to which he nonchalantly replied that it just happened with eating and sleeping. Food left out. Washing, laundry, and trash are left everywhere. The house was in a deplorable state, unrecognizable as our home. Seeing the mess, I couldn't help but blurt out, "Stop joking around. You never showed up at the hospital, and you neglected all the housework. Before the birth, you used to help clean enthusiastically. Why have you suddenly stopped doing anything?" He responded incredulously, "Why should I be scolded? You love working, Madison. You worked hard even after we got married and until you took maternity leave. Housework is a wife's job, isn't it? I thought you'd be happy to have something to do when you got back, so I left it for you. Clean it up now that you're discharged." He had grown accustomed to the mess, nonchalantly relaxing on the couch in the fly-infested living room. It was impossible to live in such filth, let alone lay a clean towel down for the baby to sleep on. Attempting to clean while holding the baby was futile, so I yelled at my husband, who was scrolling on his phone. "Do you really think I can clean up in this state? If you're not going to do it, hold our baby at the entrance. It's impossible to care for our baby in this mess." He sighed in exasperation, "Why do I have to take care of it? Housework and parenting are your job. You're supposed to do these things, right? And since when did you start ordering me around so much? This is why women are no good. Still acting like you're pregnant even though there's no baby inside anymore. You're the worst, trying to make excuses and boss your husband around. I reached my breaking point. Enough! What's gotten into you? Why are you acting this way? What happened to you while I was in the hospital? Tears streamed down my face as I confronted him, and he groaned, avoiding my gaze. Then, as if psyching himself up with a slap to his cheeks, he stood up with determination. I've been too lenient with my wife, turning her into a useless woman, but not anymore. I've decided to properly educate my wife as a husband should. He declared, his face contorted with effort. I've done my part. I went to pick you and the baby up from the hospital to ensure I wasn't completely detached from parenting. I've made it clear that housework and parenting are your responsibilities. I'm becoming a responsible husband. Speechless at his transformation, I stood there as he announced, I have plans to go out drinking with a buddy. Make sure the house is clean before I get back. Don't expect any help from me, and with that, he left. All I could do was stand there, unable to process the drastic change from the kind man I once knew. What could possibly have happened to turn the man who was once eager to share household duties and learn to be a good father into this? In my panicked state, the sight of the garbage-filled room pushed me over the edge, and tears began to fall, landing on my baby's cheeks. The baby, awakened by my crying, began to fuss, and I started crying out loud as well. Mom, I just don't understand anymore. Help me. I pleaded as I sat in the entranceway and called my mother on my phone. As soon as the connection was made, I cried out, and my mother said, I'll be right there, while my father drove her to me. She told me to wait outside rather than stay in the dirty house. Sitting on the front porch with my baby, I continued to cry quietly under the bright sunshine. When my parents arrived, my in-laws were with them. Upon seeing me, my mother-in-law immediately began to apologize profusely. My parents intervened to stop her, assuring that it was Ethan who was to blame. Once that was settled, I finally had a moment to ask why my in-laws were there in the first place. Tears welling up in her eyes, my mother-in-law confessed, the truth is, we also doubted Ethan and feared he might be troubling you. So, we decided to secretly visit your house. That's when we bumped into your parents and they kindly gave us a ride here. I'm truly sorry for all the trouble our son has caused. I had to somehow stop the conversation from turning into another round of apologies. My father-in-law, who was so angry he looked like he might start yelling at any moment, didn't utter a single word. But the way his temples throbbed red and twitched told me he was on the verge of an outburst. Neither my mother-in-law nor my father-in-law could get through to Ethan on the phone. That darned son of mine. Next time I see him, I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind, my father-in-law muttered, then took several deep breaths to calm down. After a while, he seemed more at peace and kindly said to me, now, you shouldn't be stressing yourself. Please, ride in my car. We'll handle the cleaning, just wait for us. With that, he and my mother-in-law took my child and me to the car and then entered the house. My parents followed suit, insisting on helping, and I could hear all four of their screams. No doubt they had opened the door to that bug-infested, foul-smelling living room. I hugged my baby tightly in the car, feeling terrible about the situation. Hours passed as my father-in-law went out to buy insecticide, and bags packed to the brim with trash were taken out to the collection area. Thanks to their efforts, when I entered the house again, there were no bugs, ventilation had been done, and the smell was much less offensive. It appeared they had cleaned every room, not just the living room. I felt a profound gratitude as my mother and mother-in-law prepared dinner. It had been a long time since I had someone else's home cooking. Having managed my diet strictly during pregnancy, it tasted even more delicious, and I polished it off in no time. The home-cooked meal helped ease my anger towards Ethan for a while. As we were waiting for Ethan's return, someone knocked at the door. Just as I rushed to see, my father-in-law reassured me, you take it easy, and went to answer it. He answered and exclaiming, Ethan? I knew from my father-in-law calling my husband's name that Ethan had come home. I wondered why he would knock the door. While quietly trying not to wake the sleeping child, we all went to see. To my surprise, a man was dragging Ethan into the house. Ethan's face was red and swollen, and he was sobbing loudly. Upon seeing me, the man introduced himself, nice to meet you. I'm Michael, a friend of Ethan's. We went out for drinks, and that's when I heard about you and the baby. I had no idea, and I am terribly sorry for causing such distress during this challenging time. I was surprised, but had the man raise his head to see my husband still sobbing. Noticing my gaze, a man Michael said, "This guy was boasting about defeating his lousy wife in argument, so I asked for the details. Turns out, what he did was so terrible, and even though I told him to go home, he wouldn't listen and didn't understand what he'd done wrong, so I ended up hitting him. I'm sorry." Since the mood for drinking was gone, it seemed they had disbanded, but he couldn't leave my weeping husband behind and brought him home. As I was apologizing for the inconvenience, suddenly my husband raised his face and started yelling. "Just because you were out-argued, you resort to violence. That's why you can't get married. You're single because you don't understand that household chores and parenting are a wife's job. It's the worst to be punched out of nowhere by someone who's just an onlooker." Look, I'm sorry for hitting you. I apologize for that. But seriously, what's going on with you? Last time we met, you were fine, right? Why are you suddenly saying stuff like a deadbeat husband? Michael said, clearly baffled. Feeling the same, I realized my husband's attitude had indeed changed abruptly. "Ethan, you never said such things before I was hospitalized for childbirth. You said household chores and parenting are a wife's duty, and that the husband should come first. Why did you suddenly start thinking that way?" When I asked again, my husband blurted out, "Household chores and parenting are a woman's job. That's what everyone says." I realized that I was wrong all along. "Who's everyone? Your coworkers? Friends? Who exactly are you talking about?" I asked him straight in the face, to which he replied shortly, "People on the social media." What? You're taking information from the internet at face value? Are you out of your mind? Michael said, raising an eyebrow in disbelief. My husband, looking annoyed, thrust his smartphone at him. "Look at this. It's obvious women should do household chores because they don't earn as much as men. Only women can have babies, so parenting is their job too. See, everyone agrees with this." Michael screamed in disbelief after looking at the screen. "You believe this website? Are you insane?" Taking the smartphone from Michael, I saw a website. It was belittling housewives, filled with countless stories praising the shoving of household and parenting duties onto wives. These opinions my husband referred to as everyone's were posted on an internet forum. Summarizing my still shouting husband's story, it seems he came across such sites right before I was hospitalized, and began to think that he was just pampering his wife, being a useless husband. While alone at home during my hospital stay, he kept visiting these sites, convinced that he had been wrong. He commented about changing himself on these sites and became hooked on the supportive comments he received. As a result, my husband was dyed with the belief that household chores and parenting are women's work because women are less capable at work and earn less money. If they have a complaint, they should just earn more. Unlike me, speechless with astonishment, both our parents and in-laws were furious. "It's unthinkable. We didn't raise you to be like this," they said in unison. Michael, whom my husband looked to for salvation, said coldly, "I'm disappointed. I can't be friends with someone like this. As of today, I'm cutting ties with you." I joined in, confronting my husband. "First off, why should I prioritize the opinions of faceless strangers online over us? Are the people writing more trustworthy to you than we are?" That made my husband look at me as if he had an epiphany. To top it off, my mother said sharply, with a cold look, "It seems none of the important people here, your dear Madison, your parents, your friends, share those values. If you still think you're right, then I guess we'll have to leave you, because your thinking is different from Ethan's." My father also said, "As things stand, I can't leave my precious daughter Madison with you any longer. Madison, it's not too late. We're ready to welcome you, and it's okay to rely on us if it's tough." Just then, as if a spell had been lifted, my husband, who had been raging just a moment before, suddenly calmed down. "No, but..." he kept repeating. When he looked up and saw my face clearly, his own turned pale as a ghost. "For me, the most important thing is Madison. I wanted to be a good husband for her, sought out loads of info, and then With tears in his eyes, he prostrated himself before me with a burst of emotion. "I'm so sorry, Madison. I was wrong. Seeing him like this, my father-in-law spoke in a calm voice. I have a question for you. When you were a kid, did you ever see me tell your mother that housework and parenting were a woman's job, or show that attitude? Did I appear that way to you as a father? He asked with tears in his eyes. My husband replied, Dad, you were always a wonderful father, fully supporting Mom by her side. Then he continued, I realized that I was too bound by what I read online, and I couldn't see what was around me. I'm truly sorry. Witnessing his sudden apologies, my parents said, Madison, it's up to you what to do next. We'll support you whatever you decide. After some thought, I told my husband there won't be another chance, and I decided to forgive him this time. Since then, my husband has woken up from the spell of extreme online opinions and is struggling with unfamiliar housework and parenting as he engages with our baby. I wonder how long this will last, but my in-laws and my own parents seem to share my feelings, as they continue to train him while he still strives on. He now says with concern, kids are adorable, but parenting is more physically demanding than I imagined. I now realize you've been doing all the housework and looking after the child alone while I'm at work. Thanks so much. If you're not feeling well, don't hesitate to rely on me. Looking at the smiling face of my husband holding our child, I think he might truly become a good father. I'm hoping these peaceful days will last forever.